putting up, oops, yes, recording is in process. Um, Thank you all for joining us today. We are in session 3, aren't we? We're almost halfway done, I think, right? Which is great. So just to go through the agenda for today, normally we'll have a review of board governance for any follow-up questions, but Dr. Palmer filled me in and said you guys were able to get through it last time and we'll be able to move forward. So great. So today we're going to be covering program design, management, and evaluation, as you all know. Let's review the agenda really quick. Obviously, you're going to go over the design management and evaluation, the overview first, then move on to design management and evaluation, which each section will be reviewed. Dr. Palmer will review each and the program elements of each or content of each. And as usual, you'll have a session evaluation in our closing. So, Dr. Palmer, I'll turn it over to you to take over for today.
If you all could take us back to the gallery view, that would be great. Well, hey, everybody. I just want to see everybody. I'm scrolling through my screens here. I just want to see who I can see. As I said before, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Man, we have been on a journey. As Lisa mentioned, we are halfway there. This is our 3rd session, and we have obviously 3 more to go. We kicked this off with the orientation and taking a look at capacity and thinking through that, which I think is very important when you begin a capacity building experience, whether it's training or technical assistance or coaching or consultation. It's good to kind of ground yourself in what your current level of capacity is. So as you know, that's kind of where we started. We did our assessments. We talked about collectively where we are as it relates to capacity. One of the things that we saw in the results collectively related to our topic today, which is program design, management, and evaluation, was that there is an interest in focusing on the program evaluation aspect of programming and providing services through our nonprofit organization. So we're going to spend time on that today. Probably a little bit more time on that than we will design and management. So just as a heads up there. Then once we did that, we went into board governance and we talked about board development and talked about managing the board. And so today, as we mentioned, we're going to move into our new topic. The way this session is structured, it's 3 parts: program design, program management, and program evaluation. And what we typically do is have you go into breakouts. You'll do at least 2 breakouts, working with the content and the information that we provide. So I just want to kind of set the stage there. And so we're gonna get started. In your workbooks, we are focused on pages, just to kind of get you there. We are focused on pages 44. That's kind of in the center of your workbook, page 44 through 55. That's kind of the pages, and most of the worksheets are going to be or are related to program evaluation. So again, we're going to focus on that, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on that than the other 2. So I want you to get prepared for that. And then we're going to be sharing a couple of items or documents that you're going to lift from the chat. So I want you to be prepared for that as well. So that's kind of setting the stage for our topic, kind of moving into our topic today. But I do want to get a bit of a check-in. Give me an idea of just with where you are now, with all of the information that we've covered so far, and you can use the chat if you'd like. What have you used already? So all the 2 topics we've covered so far, sharing with you our framework. Give me an idea of what you've been able to use in the past 2 weeks. And you can unmute yourself if you'd like, or you can put it in the chat. And team, if you would just help me kind of see what folks are putting in the chat.
Lisa mentioned leaning into scope and scale. Melanie noted that the capacity assessment was helpful for her board conversation at a board meeting. Steph said she had a good conversation with their ED about goals for the board for the next year and strategic planning. Setting up more consistent meetings with the board chair. Dasali, thanks for commenting. And Samuel working on building a self-assessment tool for the local arts council network. And our assessment guide is a really great framework. Oh, good to hear. Please use it. Please use it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Thank you for that. Do you want to go right into the LinkedIn poll question or? Okay.
All right. I will share my screen real quick. We put up a poll this time around for this week's session into LinkedIn. And as you can see here, I put a time limit on it, so it's only 2 days left. You all can still respond to this. You can go into LinkedIn group. But we asked what aspect of programming do folks find the most challenging? And the person who voted, yay, I want to see who this is. I want to give them kudos. I don't want to call them out though. They say all of the above. All of the above is something that they find the most challenging about programming, design management, and evaluation. So just a reminder that these opportunities are a chance for you all to respond about the content, to connect with one another. I'd love to see interactivity within the comments section of folks asking for help or ideas and discussing challenges on this platform if you want to take on that challenge with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. And keep in mind that once our session ends, we do stay on the call for a few more minutes. And so if there's something, a question you have, or sometimes there's scenarios that folks are dealing with or situations and they want a different perspective or they'd like to hear what we think. And so we stay on kind of post the session every week. So keep that in mind if that is something that you need. All right, if we could go to the slide 10. So our topic today is program design, management, and evaluation. And we ask you to bring paper and pen or pencil with you today. So if you would grab that, I want to just kind of have you write a couple things down. And we're going to use this information to, we're going to reference this information all the way through the session today. So again, we are here to gain a better understanding about how programs are designed or services. Some of you may refer to what you offer as a service as opposed to a program. Some of you have programs and services. Some of you have what you might call events or activities. So it just depends on how you name those resources or those things that you do or that you deliver to the community. So it can be different for each and every organization. So we do realize that. So keep that in mind as we're working through this. But nonetheless, many of our nonprofit organizations are established and created and set up to offer some type of program or to offer some type of resource that in some cases we design and author ourselves. So we create programs, or sometimes we might buy a program or and we implement that or replicate a program in our areas. Some of you are part of networks, you're a part of associations. And so oftentimes there are curricula or a curriculum is established for you to actually deliver a certain program or service. So it's important to just kind of keep that in mind as well. in cases where your programming might already be packaged for you, what you probably have found is that you have to alter it in some cases. Like you have to modify it or change it, or you have to rework it so that it meets the needs of your individual community. But there are some of you whereby your nonprofit was literally started as a result of creating a program, delivering it in your community, then realizing that a 501c3 organizational structure would be a way to continue that work. And so, again, many of our programs have been developed first, and then the nonprofit comes next. And so just want to kind of make sure that we're all kind of recognizing and understanding where programs originate. And so with that paper or pen or pencil that you have, I want you to think about a program, one program that your nonprofit offers, one program. Team, can we go back to the gallery real quick? Because I want to pose another question and I need to see. How many of you are on the call today or that you are a part of a nonprofit and you do not have a program? So you don't have a program, you don't have a service. Are there any of us on this call that your particular organization does not offer any type of program or service? I see one, I see Nydia. Anybody else that you all, does everybody at least have a program that they offer? Okay. Nydia, do you all do events? Do you do events? Okay, so I'm gonna have you to identify an event, okay, that you offer, an event as opposed to a program. So I'll try to kind of align that with that. Is there anybody else? I want to make sure we're all together in the content that we're gonna go over.
Steph is asking, is supporting community organizing a service? Would you categorize that as such? Is supporting community organizing a service?
Is the way that you deliver that, do you have like a structure to it in terms of how you do that? The person who wrote that.
Steph, yeah, it's somewhat.
Okay. Okay, so you can use that. Yes, you can use that. So I'll try to keep both of those in mind as I'm going through the content. So what was my instruction? Let's see how many are with me this morning. What was my instruction? What are you supposed to have ready? What did I ask for in my instructions? I asked for two things. What was it? Everybody at the same time. You don't want me to sing. Y'all really don't want me to sing. Paper and pencil. Yes, got your paper and pencil. What else? What did I ask you to think about or to identify? One what? A program. Perfect. All right. So I can keep it going, keep it moving. All right. So think about one program or service or event or activity that your nonprofit offers. Think about that. Think about how it works. Think about how do people participate in it. And I want you to jot all of that down on that piece of paper. All of it. Everything that comes to mind to you about that program. Everything. Just jot it down. Bullet points. How do I get involved in the program? What happens in order for that program or that service or that event or that activity to take place? And I'm going to stay here for a minute because I want to know, I want you to put on that sheet all of it, front and back. You can use symbols if you like. You can use stick people, whatever, but just kind of give me some indication on that sheet. What does that program look like? What happens with that program? What happens with that service? Give me the whole list. And I'm gonna go just kind of silent here for a minute and let you work on that. What happens in that with that program? What does it take in order for that program to be delivered or offered through your nonprofit organization? And it's very important for you to compile this list because we're going to refer to this list throughout the session today. So we're going to keep going back to this list, back to this list, back to this list. So I'm going to, again, I know I said I was going to be quiet, but for real, I'm going to be quiet here for a couple of minutes and let you write that out. Real quick in the chat, how many items do you have listed? Just real quick in the chat, give me the number. How many items do you have listed? How many specific things do you have on your list? Just pop it in the chat for me.
Yeah, 10, 4, 6, 10, 7, 12, 22. Wow. 10,
Great.
6, 7, 13,
Mhm.
12, 3.
Gotcha. 3,
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've
All
seen
right.
20, 21, and 22.
Okay, all right. So our topic today, again, is broken up into 3 parts. And one of the things that we know is that many times when we write grants, oftentimes our grants are to support programs or our grants are to support services. Oftentimes when we engage in fundraising, oftentimes our fundraising is geared around the programs and services that we offer. Literally, if you had 10 programs, you could have 10 little mini MINI fundraising campaigns around each and every one of those programs. So the topic in terms of setting up the program, kind of getting a gauge on how to manage the program and then how to evaluate programs is critical to a lot of the other things that we do as it relates to our work in nonprofit organizations. And like I said before, oftentimes our grant writing is related to programming. And oftentimes our sponsorships, scholarships, those ways of bringing in dollars into the organization are geared towards that. And oftentimes the evaluation part of the program is the type of information we need to make the case that our programs are making a difference and that our programs are needed. And so kind of the way in which we do this, like I said before, is we framed it around these three different areas. When we consider design of a program, what we are encouraging is that we design programs related to our mission and to our vision. And so that's that part of it. And then when we manage our programs, we're wanting to make sure that we have the human resources, the dollars that we need to achieve whatever outcomes it is that we need, that we're trying to achieve. And so that's important. And then when we evaluate, we're trying to just ensure that our programs are needed, for one, because we don't want to spend money and utilize resources and the programs aren't meeting a need or they're not making a difference. And so this program design, management, and evaluation content, the way that we have it crafted, is kind of like building blocks. And when we design a program, we're designed with the end in mind. We design it such that it is going to yield the impact and the outcomes that we desire based on that program. What we're going to do now is, in thinking about that program that you've, the characteristics that you listed, what makes this program impactful and great in your community? So I want you to think about that for a minute. Jot down a couple of nuggets about your response as a response to that. What makes this program impactful and great in your community? What makes this program impactful and great in your community? So I want to give you a couple minutes to think about that. Jot down a couple of notes there. And team, I am waiting on the checklist. I know you're following the notes, but I'm holding off on that. I didn't forget it. I'm just going to put it in a different place. So what makes this program impactful and great in your community? And so we're going to place you into breakout rooms. We want to also utilize this as a moment for you to do some more introducing yourselves to each other. And so when you go into the breakout rooms, be sure to, share who you are and what you do with your organization. But more importantly, we want you to share in your breakout what makes this program that you have, that you're using for this exercise today. What makes this program impactful and great in your community? And I think, Rebecca, I'm turning it over to you to put folks in breakouts.
Yep. I'm all ready to go. How many minutes are we doing in breakouts, Dr. Palmer? 10?
Yes, 10. And we'll apologize in advance if everybody doesn't get a chance to share, but try to manage your time so that everybody gets a chance to share in your breakout.
And I'll be sure to post what the instructions are, broadcast that to the breakout, so you all have that for reference. And remember, recall at any time, you can always come back to the main room if you have a question or you need to move groups or whatever the case may be. Feel free to come back in the main room as you need to. All right, here we go.
Thank you. Thank you. So hopefully you did get to know each other a little bit better, and you were also able to brag a little bit about your programs and all the great and wonderful things you're doing in the community, and especially in your local community. Thank you all for all the work that you do, providing resources to individuals in your community and making a difference in the lives of the folks that you serve, or the animals, or the art, or the environment, all the things that you're doing. Because we know our sector of nonprofit organizations is divided into subsectors. And so we all are doing amazing work in our local community. And without our work taking place, there would be some major gaps left open. And so thank you for that. So hopefully you were able to, as I said before, you were able to take some pride in all that you do, and you were able to brag a little bit. Lisa, I see you're unmuted. I just wanted to make sure, were you about to say
Oh,
something?
no,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. No worries. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so as we think about program design, management, and evaluation, uh, and the list that you created, we are going to kind of break those down and talk about and learn about designing programs and managing programs and evaluating programs, spending a significant amount of time on evaluation. It's where we're going to spend quite a bit of time. So beginning with program design, we have created a checklist of characteristics of programs, and we've divided that checklist into these 3 areas. And so what we would like for you to do, we're going to put the link for this checklist in the chat, but we're also going to populate it on the screen. So get ready to grab it out of the chat, and team, if you would go ahead and place that there. And then also, team, if you would show it on the screen. So we've generated a list of characteristics of a program. And we're going to start with design. And so what I would like for you to do is take a look at the list that you created yourself for your program. And I want you to note on your list by number where you have listed the same things that we have, right? So we're going to do kind of a matching exercise. So in terms of program design and thinking about program design, we've mapped out these 9 characteristics. And typically, when we create a program, there's some need or some issue or some something in our community that prompts us to create a service or offer a service or create a program as it relates to that particular issue. Sometimes that we're addressing a social problem or human service need, or it's not always doom and gloom when we design programs either. Sometimes we design programs that are unique and different, but they are about maybe leadership, or maybe we create a program. If you are a nonprofit organization and you're a nonprofit, we have gardening clubs, and so sometimes gardening clubs will have different services or resources or experiences that people can have as it relates to that. So again, I don't want to imply that designing programs is all about, something, some crisis or something that's negative. We can definitely design programs around things that are more positive. The second item in designing a program is typically we have a target population that we are trying to support, or we're trying to help, or we're trying to assist. And oftentimes we will have a profile of that target population that includes demographics. You could also add here psychographics, because oftentimes we're also trying to understand behaviors of a population, preferences of a population, et cetera. So, and oftentimes with programming and services, we're trying to change something as it relates to that population as well. So that's something to think about there. So look at your list that you generated and see if you have anything on your list about your example that's related to number 1 or number 2. So is that in your list? Just put a little number 1 or put a little number 2 by it if it is. Geographic location. In designing a program, we determine what the service area is going to be. What is going to be our reach? Is it going to be a neighborhood? Is it going to be a city? Is it going to be a region? Is it multiple counties? Et cetera. And so that's important to include in your design. community needs assessments or asset mapping. Now, we're going to do a little bit more work with needs assessments and asset mapping when we get to strategic planning. However, at the same time, when we're designing programs, oftentimes we have referenced information that helps us to understand that there's a need for this particular program or service that we're wanting to offer. And so putting in the design a description of the need, an explanation of the need regarding the target population, regarding the geographic area, regarding the problem or the focus of in terms of what the program is going to address. All of that is captured in that needs assessment, or we better understand it through a needs assessment. So a needs assessment helps us to understand how broad the gap really is, or how or not. And so we get a sense of the need. The asset mapping is what assets are available in the community that can support this program that you have. So for example, if your program is an after-school program, assets might be that the geographic area that you're trying to serve, a playground is in walking distance, or resources for youth are in walking distance. So what are the assets in your community that can support that program or that can support the service? So on the list that you created, where is there evidence of number 4? And where is there evidence of number 5 on your list that you created about that program that you used as an example? Number 6, the landscape of the program. So are there similar programs and services in the community? If so, what are they? And do you have an understanding of those programs to compare and contrast how your program is impacting or needed in the community compared to another that might be similar? We typically don't view similar programs and services that we offer through our nonprofits as competitors. It's good to view those other programs and services as partners or collaborators, because you can partner and collaborate together and leverage what all those organizations bring to have greater impact. So is there anything in your list that is an indication of number 6? Number 7, when we are designing programs, a part of what happens either organically or intentionally is we get feedback from individuals who might be participating in our program. So we get an understanding from them, what their needs are, the availability of those individuals to participate, affordability of a program. I would make note here that a lot of times in nonprofit organizations, we shy away from charging a fee or offering a fee for something, because oftentimes we're trying to meet the need. Individuals have limited resources. Maybe they can't afford, market rate, let's just say, for summer camp for their child. However, it doesn't mean that we should not entertain that, or that we shouldn't consider affordability and what individuals can actually offer in terms of participating in a program. Feedback from community partners. I mentioned before a number 6. It's good for us to understand what other organizations or programs exist in our community that are similar or that align with what we do, because if we can collaborate and collectively, oftentimes we can have greater impact. And then number 9, what is the fund development strategy for that program that you listed for your example? It is important in the design, to think about funding and to think about how the program is going to be funded. Are we going to fundraise for the program? Is there a way for us to have earned income from this program? Are we going to pursue grants? Is there a fee for service? I would encourage us to consider all 4 of these when we are designing a program in terms of where our funding comes from. So look at that list that you have. Some of you said you had 20 items on your list. Some said you had 3. Some said you had 12. Of those that you listed, which are related to or relevant to our characteristics 1 through. So look at your list and just kind of, put a little number by all the items that you currently have on your list that match ours. Program design. Now, there may be some other characteristics that you include here because all of our programs and services are unique and different. This is the same for events or activities that you offer. So what is kind of the angle? What is the design of those? And team, if we could go back to the gallery, that would be great. I do want to pose a question, 1 through 9. Is there any one of those that you say, this is very challenging to do, or you're not quite clear about it? 1 through 9. Is there any one of those that we've listed there? And Rebecca, are you going to do the Zoom poll for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to pop up the Zoom poll. What are you very clear about related to program design? What are you very clear? Well, which one?
Is the
Let's
right
see.
one?
Challenging. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Challenging. Sorry.
Mhm.
What is the most challenging?
All right.
Let's see. What is the most challenging?
We're about
Um,
halfway there.
thank you.
So keep it open for about a minute or so,
right.
45 seconds. So
Uh-huh.
70% participated.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, leave it up. I'm looking, I see needs assessment, asset some of these are competing for, okay, 7, 2. Yeah. Looks like fund development strategies.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
time. Always. No surprises there though, right?
uh-huh. That's number 1.
So are you able to
Right.
see the results coming in, Dr. Palmer?
Uh-huh, I can.
All right.
Yep.
I'm gonna end the poll so everyone else can see where we
Okay.
ended up.
All right.
And share the results.
All right. Thank you.
So there we go. Folks can see what we had here.
Okay.
It looks like fund development strategies.
Mm-hmm.
We had target population at 20%. And then I would say program landscape in the community and feedback from program participants after that in 3rd place.
Okay, so number 6, number 9, number 2, number 6, and what was the other one? Once it went up, yeah. Let's see.
I think feedback from community partners.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the one thing I'll say, let's talk about fund development strategies. I would encourage us to consider all 4 of these options when you're designing a program and quite frankly, programs that you already have in existence. If you haven't considered all 4, because what we know as it relates to fundraising for our nonprofits as a whole is we want to diversify where monies and funds are coming from in order to run the entire organization. That should also be true for individual programs as well. And so as much as we can, we should try to incorporate multiple funding options or multiple ways in which dollars can support a program. And it's just like we have it listed here. If you're programming from a fundraising standpoint, maybe you want to raise money for scholarships for people to participate, or some kind of stipend or something like that for folks to participate. Or maybe there is something that you can offer for sale, SALE, SELL, that you can sell that might help generate dollars for that program. Definitely grants Oftentimes the grant option is the first option, but we really should be trying to secure dollars that may not be as restricted as grants are. And then, of course, fee for service. You know, maybe I can't afford $25 to participate, but I might be able to afford 5. And so doing a little bit of thinking about multiple ways of going about that. We're going to do a deeper dive for number 4 and number 5, which is the needs assessment and asset mapping, paying attention to other programs and services that are in your community that are similar or that align with the kind of program and services that you offer is important. Here's a reason why. If you're writing a grant, 9 times out of 10, there may be another program or programs that are similar. They're writing for that same funding, right? And so when that potential funder poses the question, are you collaborating? Are you partnering? Are you working together? Because as funders, we're trying to stretch the dollar. And so it's important to have some sense of who those other or where those other programs and resources are. Definitely that can be challenging. And sometimes it's literally challenging to collaborate and to work collective and to be partnered. You know, it just depends on what the culture is like in our community and the appetite for really kind of coming together and collaborating in that way. I think the other one was getting feedback from community partners. You know, host some events, invite folks into your space, to your location. Talk to them about what you do. I was just invited yesterday, a agency that's in our community. I probably hadn't been on that property in several years. The ED reached out and invited, you know, community leaders, individuals in the nonprofit sector. There was probably 12 or 15 of us there, talked about what they do, et cetera. So that's a way to begin to foster those kinds of relationships. I'm going to pause here and see if there are any voices that want to be added to what I am saying. We want to know what's challenging, what's not clear to you as it relates to these 9 characteristics around program design.
I was just gonna say, asset mapping was difficult at first when I thought about it, but then what I did, excuse me, was look at what the county was doing. And I realized that they did needs assessments and all that stuff. So I was able to pull some information on just some areas in the community. So that was really helpful for me.
Thank you. Is it Amira?
Amira.
Is it Amira? I'm sorry, Amira. Thank you. Thank you for adding voice to that. Absolutely. There are your city government, municipalities, county, of course, the census data. You know, there are some very credible resources out there to help you to better understand need and also to help you better understand assets in the community. Anybody else that just kind of wants to add or lend voice to that?
Yeah, I'll add one. As a land conservation nonprofit, we struggle a lot of times with describing our demographics because we conserve land to protect water quality and everything like that. So we say that our work benefits everyone in our community.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes, especially with granting agencies, they want hard numbers and they want to know how many people we've directly benefited. And that can be very difficult when it's a little bit more abstract.
You are exactly right. And how have you all done that, Sean?
It's kind of I think it's a little of a rough approach, but if we're looking at a specific project or a specific property, we'll just map out a 5-mile radius of the boundary and say, here's the demographics within 5 miles of this project.
What's really good about the approach that you've taken there is you've customized it, right? You've determined, and that's credible. especially if that's how you're looking at all of your programs or all your properties, that's your methodology, that's
Mhm.
your approach. And when you're consistent across multiple properties, if I'm understanding, if you're consistent, then you're building a data pool, right? You're
Okay.
you're building data that you can then analyze and that you
Mhm.
can kind of even compile over a period of time. So I know you probably think, because I think you said maybe not so whatever.
It feels arbitrary. It feels a little arbitrary. Yeah.
It's arbitrary until you do it consistently.
Okay.
It's arbitrary until now, if you were kind of like, we do this way and we do this way, and you're all over the place, then yes, that's exactly what it is. But when you're consistent across your properties, you're
Mhm.
able to bring that together.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. hmm Anybody else that before we go on to program management, just want to make sure that we're kind of rooted in this first part, which is the program design part. And again, if you already have programs up and running, you can literally generate a document that highlights all of these characteristics under design. Put it in one place. You always have it. You don't have to go back, and you can tweak it, edit as things change. But if you have 10 programs, you could have 10 different design documents as it relates to your programs. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is a simple question, Dr. Parma, about the 4 categories and the fund development strategies. One of the strategies you have listed here is earned income. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about that. Our nonprofit has an ED who speaks a lot, and a number of our members of our board who speak. And sometimes the honorarium that they receive then becomes a pool of resources from which we can draw upon. I wondered if that's what you meant or if you can define.
That is a good example. So you figured out a way where there's something that you can offer, that you can sell, and that you can generate income or revenue. We could easily say earn revenue from that. So yes.
Thanks.
Uh-huh. All right. Before we go into program management, we're going to take a break. Rebecca, how much of a break time do we get?
Maybe 8 minutes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
Once
it
we
is
come back-
10:32. We'll come back at 10:40, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that's good.
Was everyone able to access the checklist that we put in the chat? Because we're going to be going back and forth with that. And then also kind of the program that I asked you to use as an example for our work today. We're going to be going back and forth with that as well. Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that thumbs up. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're on Zoom if we're all kind of all together. So I appreciate the use of the reaction feature to communicate back to us. We're now going to go into program management. So team, if we could put up the checklist, and some folks are asking to resend the checklist. So if we could do that, that would be great. I'll just pause for a minute while everybody gets that. All right. Program management. So as we're going through our checklist, again, we want you to indicate where you align with what we have as it relates to the way your programs and or services are set up. And so community impact is one of the things that we oftentimes are monitoring and tracking. And might I say, not just the impact, but also the outcomes. And so typically when we create a program, We are managing that program, hopefully with some sufficiency. I do know that oftentimes programs are closed or we have to put them on hiatus because we don't necessarily have funding. And here lately, what I'm seeing is that we also have personnel challenges. So we're having difficulty hiring people to actually come in and work with our programs. And I'm seeing that across sectors. So it's happening, in business, it's happening in government, it's happening with us as nonprofit organizations. But when we're managing our programs, number 10 on our list is community impact. And so we're paying attention to whether or not the purpose in which we created the program, whether or not we are meeting our goals, whether or not we are achieving objectives, and whether or not we are experiencing the outcomes that we hope for. And so it is important when we design the program to be thinking about that. And so we encourage to map out what the purpose of the program is. What is its purpose? And if you think about it, our nonprofit organization, the 501c3, has the mission. It has a mission, and all of our programs and services should be helping us to work in that mission space. So all of our programs, we should be thinking about whether or not they are, aligned with, in terms of what we're trying to achieve and the purpose, whether they are aligned with our mission and our vision. Another part of management goes without saying. We need staff. Oftentimes we need volunteers. There's a knowledge set, a skill set, there's experience that we are looking for in terms of who's actually going to help us deliver what it is that we're doing with these programs. We also have an opportunity to promote, advertise, and market the program. What I will point out here is that keep in mind, we have some traditional ways that we have promoted and advertised our programs in our community, but also we should be thinking about strategic communication. This particular kind of management function of a nonprofit is a part of our principles and practices guide. And so actually it's on page 18 if you wanted to go there, but strategic communication is a part of managing the program. It is a part of managing the program. Social media, we know that many of our organizations are very active on social media. It's a very low cost to no cost option, but it does require a skill set to be able to synchronize those social media platforms. So it should be some operationalizing and synchronizing Facebook with Instagram, with the website, with LinkedIn, with all those different platforms that we're using. It should be strategic. It shouldn't be just random, and use that as a marketing resource. And again, many of us, our nonprofit organizations, might have some challenges with having that skill set in-house. So that's another facet of managing the program, getting the word out. Special events, that's another way to manage the program. Many of us go to resource fairs, we do presentations, we engage in a variety of ways of raising the awareness about how our program works, and then also ways in which we can share broadly what it is that we do, and generating partnerships and collaboration in the community with number 14. It should be intentional in terms of what our strategy is as it relates to the events that we attend. Something else you want to make note here too. Don't forget, some of us in our roles within the nonprofit that we serve or that we work with might even find ourselves serving on boards of other nonprofits. We might also find ourselves serving on committees that have a community focus. And those are also ways that we can further share what it is that we do as it relates to as it relates to our programs and getting the word out. And goes without saying, fund development strategies. What type of fund development strategies are we using to keep the program going? And also that can help us to manage the program. So for example, it definitely cost us if we're going to have staff. It definitely may cost us if we are advertising and marketing. It may cost us if we have a website manager or developer, or if we have a person that's managing our social media activity and work. And so there are costs involved in the management of the nonprofit, which is why we incorporate fund development as a part of management and a part of the design. So we should be thinking about funding for the program and diversifying funding for a program or service in the design and also in the management, because things change, as we know, in how we may go about doing this. So look at your list and note on your list where you have evidence of number 10 through 15. And I'm going to pause here and give you a minute to do that. Go through your list and just kind of note where you have items 10 through 15, either outright or maybe it is already evident in your program that you're using as an example. I'm just going to pause for about a minute and let you do that, and then we're going to go on to another part of our work here. Ten through 15, community impact, staff and volunteers, promote, advertise, and market, social media, special events, serving on boards, serving on committees, and fund development. And team, if we could go back to the gallery for a moment. So when you look at items 10 through 15, are there any of those that you see there? And Rebecca's gonna utilize the poll feature to do this. Are there any of those where those are challenging, or you're not really clear about what that means or how to go about that? Please respond to the poll. What is the most challenging? Thank you, Rebecca. What is the most challenging? Let's see. Fund development strategy seems to just be at the top of the list. Again, I would encourage us to try to utilize all of those options. Try to utilize, when you're thinking about funding a program, not just one. What I find is oftentimes we lean more towards the grants and less related to the others. Rebecca, I'll let you share the results.
Yeah, I shared the results out with you all. Thanks for participating. Once again, fund development strategies, not too surprised there. That tends to be the hardest part, as we all experience that. And then staff and volunteers coming after that. So the people part of it too can be challenging.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So that's number 11 and number 15 kind of rose to the top, right?
Yeah. And then coming
Okay.
in third here, I would say, is probably promote, advertise, and market the program.
Okay.
17%.
All right. So that's number 12. Okay. So we're going to go into a breakout. And what we want you to do in the breakout is we want you to choose one of the characteristics 10 through 15. It would be great, since we saw the most challenging was number 11, number 12, and number 15. What we want you to do in your breakout is to share how your program addresses that particular characteristic, or how do you do that particular characteristic with your program. Again, ideally, you would be able to hear all of your responses, but when you get into your breakout, again, if you haven't met already, make sure you introduce yourselves. But what you are doing is you're identifying either 11, 12, or 15. Those are the three where collectively we said, these are a little challenging to do. So we think it would be helpful for you to share in your breakout how you all are going about, how you're going about doing this particular characteristic with your program. The instruction, thank you, Rebecca. The instruction is in the chat. So I want to make sure everybody knows what we're asking of you. So I want to take about 10 seconds for you to maybe capture that question or jot down what that question is, so that when you get in the breakout, you have it at your disposal. And again, we are asking you to select one of those management characteristics, 11, 12, or 15, and to share how your nonprofit does this for your program or for this particular program. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. You'll have about 10 minutes, I think, in the breakout to do this.
Yep. I'll go ahead and open up the rooms. I'll also share the assignment in the breakout chat so you have access to it. And here we go.
As it relates to the characteristics around staffing, and also the promote and advertising and the fund development. Is there any one thing that you all heard that you thought, wow, that's different, and you'd like to share? I want to give just a little bit of time for some report out. And you can unmute yourselves and share if you'd like. Is there any idea or an approach to these characteristics that you heard that you thought was really good?
Yeah, I would like Dr. Palmer, can you hear me, man?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like the one where it says program management. I like the special events and number 14. And the main, and the way we can definitely do that is that I was telling my group that, you know, we can stay connected, because a lot of us know people and organizations that can make our nonprofits thrive and strive, and not just survive. Nobody just wants to
Thank you.
survive. They want to live and thrive and strive.
Thank you.
Like I said, I know several people who help with at-risk youth. You know, I know people who have a horseback riding company that, you know, that would, who doesn't love horses? You know, they're majestic, they're beautiful, whether you want to ride them or just look at them. Things like that. Gardening, knowing how to garden, self-defense, the list goes on and on. So special events is something that definitely intrigues me, other than fund development. I was the one that put fund development. I ain't gonna lie, guilty as charged. Fund development, hey, I gotta get that money. But yeah,
Okay.
special events, I think we all have something to help each other out with, and know someone for those events, ma'am. I had to say that, doctor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Did you hear, or is there anything that someone shared and you thought, wow, that's something I'm gonna try, or that you haven't done yet?
Mary put in the chat to bill Medicaid for MSW work. That's a good one.
Okay. That would be more like earned revenue. Yeah, okay. Anybody, something?
Sean put something that came up during our breakout was the sudden loss of federal funds affecting programs. Is anyone
Mhm.
intentionally highlighting this fund loss as a way to generate additional donations?
That's a spin on it. That's a
Mhm.
spin. I mean, and it's definitely the truth. You know, we plan for a certain amount of federal funding. We're not going to get it. It's going to leave a significant gap. Let's raise money to try to address this. Anybody else?
And that topic
And then
in particular, our municipalities, one of the questions that they ask is that how are our funds being impacted? Well, that's a direct impact to our funding. So while we don't want to get too specific or appear like we're laying blame anywhere, it is important for them to know that that's a consideration that we have as well. And another thing is, I think we all like those awareness events, and like I think Maurice just mentioned, you know, wanting to do those special events. We've all got these very impactful stories about what we do and how it impacts our community and the good things that we do. And sometimes we forget to make that ask for money because we're so focused on the awareness piece of it and educating people that we forget that a lot of those donations that they come from out in the community. So while you're out there sharing your impactful stories, make sure that you get over that line into asking for assistance and asking for help and letting them know how they can assist your agencies.
mhm.
And
And you know, we're also, go ahead.
I was just
I
going to
don't
say,
wanna-
building off of what Ms. Webb said, it's important to build a culture of fundraising mentality within your nonprofit from top to bottom. I mean, I think a lot of times people who are hired to, say, be a caseworker or whatever, they think, well, that's fundraising, that's not my job, you know. But everybody from top to bottom needs to be thinking about that money piece, right? So that if someone, you know, employee A forgets to make that ask, employee B might be right there to remember to do it, right? So as leaders of our organization, we need to take responsibility for building that culture and building that mindset amongst all of those who we supervise.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I wrote down, create a culture of fundraising. Create a culture of fundraising within our nonprofit organizations. And you are spot on. Oftentimes we are so laser focused on grant writing and fundraising gets kind of laid off to the side, when in essence, when we fundraise, we have more unrestricted dollars than when we grant write. The other thing I'll say, piggybacking off of Ms. Webb, is this leveraging. You know, the limited funding is probably going to be a reality for a minute. I'll just say limited funding that we had expected. It's going to be important for us to partner and to collaborate and to leverage resources. It would be a shame to lose two programs at the same time, when if we just leverage resources, we could probably save one of the two. And so, you know, kind of having those conversations and meeting with the people that are the decision makers of what programs your nonprofit offers, I think that's going to be a critical strategy. And to be okay with, you know, possibly having to modify and adjust so that we don't leave the very gaps that we're trying to fill and that we've been filling. So we don't leave those dormant or we don't leave those open. Anybody else? And then we'll go right on into program evaluation. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Just the idea that you heard.
yeah, this is Melanie. I hope Lisa doesn't mind me sharing. She gave an excellent quote at the end of our session. It was that work culture is important. It will eat strategy for breakfast. And Lisa, I want to
Say that again.
Work
Say that.
culture is important. It will eat strategy for breakfast. And I think maybe Lisa, you can illuminate on this, but it was a comment around the importance of culture. And we've talked about fundraising and culture, but literally just with staff particularly and volunteers, creating a healthy culture creating an environment where there is kindness, generosity, these kind of basic values that often show up in our mission vision statement, especially now because the collaboration and the partners are so important. The culture matters. And if you do have a toxic culture, then you'll be less likely to find the kind of partners. So I loved that. It was said in such lightness, but Lisa, thanks for that quote.
Mm.
Of course.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. All right. So program design, program management. We're in the home stretch. Program evaluation is the next part of our content for today. And so I want you to refer to your workbook. So if you could go to page 44, I want to point out what's in the workbook. And then we're going to work through this content. We're going to do some hands-on work through the content. Let me get over here to mine. Okay. So let's talk about what we actually have in our workbook. So on page 44, you have in kind of an overview definition of, everybody on 44, is that what you have? Program evaluation? And I see heads nodding, yes, 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 great, thank you. So that's what you have there. We're gonna come back to that, but I wanna just point out what we're working with here. Then when you look at page 45, you'll see where we have indicated a process for program evaluation, like prep, focus, conducting the evaluation and reporting out. So we've kind of framed it in that way, the process. And then page 46 are some questions that align with getting ready for the evaluation. I'm just pointing out what's in the workbook right now. Then on page 47, you have a worksheet. We're going to use that worksheet. So we're going to come back to that worksheet. The worksheet helps us to hone in and bring focus to the evaluation for our program. So that's that. And then to go along with the focus worksheet, you have page 48, which is some different ways that we're going to kind of focus in on our evaluation. And then page 49 is different types of evaluation. Now, page 49 and 50 go together. So if this were a handout, it would be front and back. On the front is the types of evaluation and overview, and on the back is an example of the kinds of questions we're trying to answer in our evaluation for that specific type of evaluation. So there's that. Page 51, once we have all the data and all the information, how do we analyze it? So that's what that is. And we're going to use all of this. Page 52, we're collecting information as a part of evaluation. And so what methods do we use then to collect information? We're going to come back to all of these. And then we interpret that data. That's page 53. And then we compile a report, page 54. What does the report look like for our program? We're using the program that you selected for the exercise. So that's the program that we're using. So we would create a report out for that program. And then who would actually get a copy of the report is page 55. So we're going to work through these. So I'm going back. I just wanted you to see all of what we have available as far as tools for you. And so in terms of program evaluation, team, can we just put up the checklist real quick and just show on the checklist evaluation. Now, in your list, remember you generated a list to describe a program with your organization. Are there any items on your list that match or align with items 16 through 20? So is there anything in the list that you generated that gives us an indication of the process that you use to do evaluation for that program? That's number 16. Is there anything in your list that you use to prep for your evaluation? Is there anything in your list? Is there anything in your list where there's some indication of how you evaluate and what the focus of that evaluation is for your program? And number 19, is there anything in your list that helps us to know how you conduct an evaluation for that program? And by the same token, number 20, is there anything in your list that helps us to see how you report out about the results? So take a look at that list that you generated. Take a look at that list and note 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, where that is evident in your list, or the symbols, or however you put that together. Okay. And so what we're going to work on for the remainder of our time today is we're going to work on crafting these particular items, these characteristics for that program that you chose to use for this exercise. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use this information that we have. Evaluation, program evaluation is a process. It is a process. We should be thinking about evaluation at the beginning. So we should be thinking about impact. If you go back to that number 1 item in the list, you know, what is it that we are addressing with this program? We should be thinking about, you know, what difference is it that we want to make in our community as a result of this program being offered. So in some ways, we want to start with the end in mind, in some ways. So it is a process. We have to manage the process. We have to be intentional about being consistent with the process and the way in which we approach gathering information about this program to help us to tell the story, to help us to tell the story of how the program works, to help us tell the story of who the program is helping, to help to tell the story, the impact and the outcomes that we are achieving. And then more broadly, how does that impact, or how do those outcomes, having achieved them, how does that make our community great and better, or better and great? So that's where and if your organization has 20 programs, then you should have 20 different, I won't say different, you should have 20 approaches to how you are going to evaluate that program. Now, keep in mind, to capacity, you know, we want to make sure we're being realistic. So there's some aspects of evaluation that you may not have the capacity to do. So you have to kind of think about, what do we have the capacity to do as it relates to this? But minimally, you want to have in place a way in which you are capturing information, gathering information to tell the story about how this program is doing. But you have to determine the scale of that. And the scale of that should be based on skills, knowledge, expertise, resources. Some nonprofits are fortunate. They're able to pay for evaluation services to evaluate programs. Many of our nonprofits are not able to do that. And so we've crafted this kind of way that you could create your own internal approach to evaluating programs. If we could go back to the gallery for just a moment. Okay, so we're going to do some hands-on work as it relates to evaluation. And again, we are wanting to look at page 47. That's our worksheet. Give me 1 second. And we're going to fill in this worksheet, and we're going to utilize the information that's in the workbook to do so. Keeping in mind, you are using the program that you selected for this exercise and for this example. So let's look at page 46 to just kind of get going. And I'm trying to pay attention to the room, so I can, be responsive to you and all of that, because we're gonna do quite a bit of this work in the gallery, view here. So in thinking about, getting ready for the evaluation, what is the purpose of the evaluation is a question you want to think about. So why are you doing the evaluation anyway? What audiences, is this information? Who are the audiences for the information from the evaluation? So who is it that needs to be presented with this information once you have it? What do you need in order to make an informed decision or enlighten your intended audiences, as it relates to this? What sources, should the information, are we collecting the information? How can that information be collected? We're going to go over all of this. When is the information needed and by when do you need to collect the information? And what resources are available to collect the information? Again, capacity. What do you have at your disposal that would help you to be able to engage in an evaluation for this program? So those are just some prompts, some things to kind of get you thinking about that. Focusing the evaluation, we're filling in the worksheet on page 47. We are filling in the worksheet on page 47, and I'm going to kind of tell you which resources in the workbook is going to help you answer the question. So on page 47, under program A, you're going to put program B. Program B is your program, okay? Program B is your program. And so we're going to begin with, why are we conducting this evaluation? Why are we conducting this evaluation? Go to page 48. In that first column, why are we conducting the evaluation? In that first column, are we conducting the evaluation to help others understand the program and the results of the program? And here, when we say results, outcome and impact, because I know many of us are familiar with that language, that's what we're talking about, outcome and impact. So are we conducting this evaluation to help others understand the program and its outcomes or its impact? Are we doing the evaluation to improve the program? Are we doing the evaluation to measure whether or not the program has made a difference in the lives of the people that we're offering the program or services to and with? Are we doing the evaluation to determine if the program is worth the cost? So is it a cost benefit approach that we're using? Or are we doing the program, are we evaluating the program to answer questions that our funders want us to answer? And other individuals in our community, donors, collaborators, are we doing the evaluation for that purpose? So on page 47, under the why column, program B is your program. Why are we conducting this evaluation? And so that comes from page 48. That comes from page 48. I want to give you a little bit more. I got 2 more pieces of information that I want you to consider to answer the why we are conducting the evaluation. On page 49, what we've noted here is that there are different types of evaluation, and we have highlighted 3 different types. There are reasons why we might want to have a goals focused or based evaluation. Is focused on goals, achieving the goals. Remember, in program management, we talked about having goals and objectives. Well, that's the area that we would be focused on if our evaluation was geared towards goal achievement. Or do we want to evaluate process? Do we want to evaluate a methodology or an approach or a framework or a process? First type of evaluation could be goals-based. Second type could be process-oriented. And then the third type is outcomes-based. Or are we trying to, or are we doing this evaluation because we want to decide if these program activities or these resources are really bringing about the results that we want? I know that all was a mouthful. I know it was, but I want you to get settled into this, get comfortable, just kind of relax and kind of walk with me through this information. So again, if you look at page 47, column 1, why are we conducting this evaluation? Is it for the reasons that we talked about on page 48? Is it because we are interested in goal achievement, process, whether a process worked, or whether or not it's really making a difference in the lives, let's just say, of the people that we serve? And keep in mind, page 49 and 50 go together. 49 and 50 go together. All right, we're still column 1, still column 1. So I'm gonna pause here, let you use the information on page 48 and 49 and 50 to answer this question. Why are you, should you, do you conduct an evaluation for that program that you're using for this exercise? I'm gonna go silent. I'm gonna try to go silent. Every time I say I'm gonna go silent, I just start talking again. But anyway, I'm gonna go silent and let you kind of identify, why are we using that information? Why should we conduct an evaluation for your program? And and fill in that information. So I'm just gonna quiet down here for a minute. Why are we conducting this evaluation? And we are here to answer questions for you. If you're pondering something, we want to make sure we're giving folks some quiet though to do their work. But if you have questions, don't hesitate. Okay. So you should have filled in that first column. What you probably noticed is you are probably conducting an evaluation for your program for multiple reasons, right? You've probably determined that it's more eclectic than one primary focus. What I will say in that case is that be mindful, the more items you have listed as to why you're conducting the evaluation, the more comprehensive the evaluation. So just kind of keep that, I won't say comprehensive, the more layers to it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you are considering what to put there. The next column we're filling in on page 47 is what exactly are we evaluating? What exactly are we evaluating? Look at the second column on page 48. What exactly are we evaluating? Are we evaluating program outcomes? Are we evaluating program impact? Are we evaluating program implementation, context, need, strengths and weaknesses, goals? What are we evaluating? And you can also reference page 49 and 50 for this too. Are we evaluating goal achievement? Are we evaluating whether or not our process worked? Are we evaluating outcomes? And what I would also add is impact, because now we're starting to see that language more. We see it in grants, we see it from funders, we hear it from partners. Well, what impact are you making? I get it that you've achieved these outcomes, but community-wide, for example, what impact are you making? Or nationally, addressing this particular aspect of your program and addressing a particular area of work, what kind of impact is that making? So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm gonna give you time. You are on page 47, focusing the evaluation worksheet. Your program B, that's your example. You've already filled in the why column. Now you're filling in the what column. What are we evaluating? And I'm gonna pause and give you a minute to write your notes in there. Are we having fun yet? Yes, yes. Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that thumbs up down there. Thank you. I'll give you another minute to fill that in. The next piece of information that we're going to fill in, we're on page 47. We've completed columns, the why column and the what column. The next column is who will use the information provided by the evaluation. Who will use the information provided by the evaluation? Go to page 48. Look at that third column. Who will use the information provided by the evaluation? Is it the people affected in some way by the implementation of the program? Like the program participants? Is it board members? Is it community leaders, volunteers, collaborators, partners, supporters, grantors, funders, donors, etc.? Who will use the information? And staff, because sometimes staff uses the information. Think about advertising, marketing, social media. Definitely the information from an evaluation will be helpful for us to market and promote and tell others how we are doing with our program. So I'm going to give you a minute to fill in the third column on page 47. Who will use the information that's provided by the evaluation? Okay. All right. We are moving right along. When would the evaluation be complete? So we do like to give a timeline on when are you going to conduct the evaluation with your for this particular program. Now, you do want to make a note of, we are monitoring and tracking, let's just say over the course of the year. We are monitoring, we are tracking, we're keeping up with how the program is performing, like over the course of the year. Some of your years are calendar years, January, December. Some of your years are fiscal years, may start July 1, end in June, may start June 1, end in May. It just depends on your organization. But you do want to think about the completion of the evaluation, meaning when will you compile a report and report out and share the progress of this program and or the challenges or lessons learned of this program. When will you do that? That's the date that we're talking about here. So you want to kind of give an indication as to what that might be for program B, because this is program B in the worksheet. So I'm going to give you a second to fill that in. Once we have all of our data in, right? Once we have, or once we decide, like why we're doing this evaluation, what type of evaluation are we doing, who's going to get the information, and when will we complete, meaning when will we do the report out? We then need to consider, or should consider, what methods are we going to use to collect information about this program? What methods are we going to use to find out from either our participants, from our partners, from our donors, from our funders, entities where we've received grants? How will we conduct the evaluation? What methods will we use? Sometimes the method is determined by the funder. So like if your evaluation is attached to a grant, for example, oftentimes that is going to kind of guide the method that you use to get that kind of information. And in some cases, a donor might be interested in that type of information too. So keep that in mind. So if you go to page 52, this is my favorite. I have several favorite handouts, but this is one of my favorite pieces of information here. My favorite piece of information. This is the coolest tool on page 52. What I like about this is that we've provided you with the methods of collecting information, say from your participants or from your partners or from your collaborators. We've provided the method, but we've also given you a description of the purpose of that type of method. So if you use interviews, what kind of feedback or information is that going to yield you? And this is, again, one of my favorite pieces of information, because you know, if we're engaged in collecting information to help us to better understand how the program is working, then it's important to use an appropriate method to gather that type of information. So the methods we've got listed are questionnaires, surveys, checklists. That's one method. Interviews, that's another method. Documentation review, I'm on page 52 if you're trying to find it. Documentation review, that's another method. Observation, you know, sometimes we want to go and see the program. So that's a method. Focus groups, sometimes we might bring all our participants together and have a sampling of participants and talk to them. Sometimes we do focus group with boards. Sometimes we do focus group with staff. So it just depends. And case studies. We included case studies because sometimes, especially when you're looking at a process-oriented evaluation or a outcome-focused evaluation, oftentimes what you might use is an actual case. You might use an actual case of a family or a person that has gone through your program, and you want to tell that whole story, and you want to showcase what that looks like and how it ended up, like how did things end or how things concluded. And so in that case, you might use a case study. The documentation review. Many of your programs do intake, registration, some type of way that I sign up for your program. And when you do that, oftentimes you're collecting demographic and psychographic data about me. And so as a participant, and so that's the kind of documentation we're talking about. You know, depending upon the focus of the evaluation has a whole lot to do with what kind of documents you keep or what kind of information you collect. So that's important to remember. So back to page 47. How will we conduct the evaluation? What methods will you use? You have a program B. That's the program example that you chose to use for this work today. And so how will we conduct the evaluation? Which of these methods are going to be the method that you use for this to evaluate this program? And so use what's on page 52 for that. The other thing to think about too is, are you wanting to focus more on kind of the qualitative aspects of the program, or are you wanting to focus on the quantitative aspects of the program? That's another piece of information that's important to think about. So consider page 51 and page 52 to answer the column on page 47 under how. And I'm gonna just stop talking and let you take some time to do that. Do we have any 21st century programs in this space, in this cohort? Are any of your organizations 21st century? Those are after school, kind of school-based programs? No? Okay. I just wondered. I know 21st century, the way in which, I'll just call it the global program, there is an evaluation resource attached to that. And so those initiatives, when an organization is funded for 21st century work, that they are offered an evaluator. That's why I'm asking. It kind of comes with that programming. Any Smart Start? Any Smart Start participants in this cohort? Partnership for Children? And if so, doesn't the North Carolina Partnership for Children offer, isn't there an evaluation component? I don't know if any of you are, but that's another one that I'm reminded of where you get the evaluation. Okay, moving right along. So once we've identified how will we conduct the evaluation, we're going to get we're going to get information back. We're going to get data back. We're going to get information from the interviews. We're going to get information from the observation, from the surveys, from the questionnaire, whatever it is that we decide to use to collect that feedback information. We're going to get that information back using those methods. And so the question then, if we go with me to page 51, the qualitative, quantitative. So if you look under qualitative in the bold, again, page 51, and you look under quantitative, notice the methods that are aligned with those two ways of analyzing that data and that information. So when we get our information back, using whatever method it is that we decide, then we have what we need to talk about our program from a qualitative perspective and or from a quantitative perspective. Quality data in, quality information out. Capturing what it is we really want to know helps us to be able to tell the story that we want to tell. So it's important in determining, remember, we're talking about one program here today. It's important for us to determine, once we get that information back, how we're going to report out on it. Are we going to report out on it with narratives and with identifying any kind of patterns or themes or any of those kinds of things that we see? Or are we going to report more out on how well we did on a scale that maybe we've developed or something like that? So that's that data analysis piece. Once we have conducted the evaluation by way of gathering feedback and gathering data about the program, we analyze that data. Another thing you want to make note of on page 51 is that we could have an evaluation where we are gathering information and reporting out more on the qualitative side. Or we could have more data and information and we're reporting out more on the quantitative side of things. Or we could do what we call a mixed method. We could have a combination of both. So when we write up our report and we talk about our results and what we found out, we can speak in that way. We can write up our report. We can present and report out in that way. We can talk about the qualitative aspects of what it is this program is doing. We can talk about the quantitative aspects of what this program is doing, or we can combine it. We can do a little bit of both. And so you have to determine which approach is better. We already know capacity is significant. So we are going to do evaluations in alignment with our capacity and what it is we're able to do. I know that was a mouthful, but I just had to say all that. Let's see. Interpretation. We've decided while we're doing the evaluation, we decided what we are evaluating. We determined who's going to use the information. We decided when we're going to do the evaluation. We've talked about how we're going to gather the data and collect the information. We discussed how we're going to analyze it. We're in the home stretch, y'all. Interpretation. Now we have all of that. Now we have to interpret what we have in front of us. And so on page 53, we've given you a little guide to be able to do that. And we framed it around whether it's goal-based, process, or outcomes-based, or impact. You could include impact there too. So in terms of, you got all your information back, you've collected all your data, you've decided if you're going to highlight the qualitative aspects, quantitative aspects, mixed method, you've decided all that, got all that in front of you. Now we're going to land the plane on something very specific. We're going to lift up that one primary evaluation component or aspect of this process. We're going to hone in on goals, or we're going to hone in on process, or we're going to hone in on outcomes and or impact. Voila, 7 steps. We did it. 7 steps that we're going to walk through in terms of the evaluation. We can wipe our brows and all that kind of stuff. That was a lot. But hopefully we've given you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of steps to get you there. Now, this is one program, just one. Just think if you've got 10 or you've got 20 or however many you may have. It is important though, on a very basic level, to think about how you're going to tell the story, about how this program is making a difference, how this program is changing lives, how this program is addressing a bigger concern in your community, and then also how this program continues to align with the mission of your nonprofit. I always think of programs as having a purpose. And then the mission of the nonprofit is achieved, and we're able to work on that by way of all of these programs that we're that we're implementing. That was a lot. But now that we have all of that, we can write a report and we can present that information. So go to page 54. Go to page 54. We can now write our report. We can now write our report. And so we've given you an example of kind of a table of contents of a evaluation report for a program. Your report may or may not be this extensive, but you can definitely borrow elements from here for you to gather, once you have all that information, for you to decide how you want to report out on it. And so, of course, the report has a title page. I'm on page 54. The report has a title page and there's a summary in there. We've got the purpose for the report. You know, we can talk about that. There's some background there. Notice on number 5 on page 54, it goes back to management and it goes back to design. So on page 5, we're pulling from what we crafted under design and what we crafted under management. So that's important. Number 6, overall goals for evaluation, where we talk about that. We look at our methodology. How do we collect our data and information? And we interpret that, we make some recommendations, and we can include in an appendix, we can include any other additional information that we need to include. So that's important to keep in mind. So this is a way that you can pull all that information together and then you can craft your presentation. You know, you probably won't report out on all of this extensively, but you can pull from it to have a really good presentation to share at the end of your cycle. If it's a 12-month year cycle, you have that information to pull from. And then on page 55, we've just listed some stakeholders that may actually want a copy of the report for your program. So the staff, the board, the funders, the clients, the public, you have a way of sharing that information. So that's important for you to keep in mind. Program design, program management, program evaluation. We have earned our keep today, right? We have. This is intended to give you a quick reference and a practical way of thinking about how to evaluate a program, but also incorporating the essentials of having a very credible evaluation process in place. So while we're here in the gallery, I want to get a sense from you as to how useful you think all of this was, and is. And you can unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself, you can put it in the chat. Program design, program management, program evaluation. How useful do you think this information, this process is? And team, I'm gonna let you all capture some. I see some popcorn happening in the chat. Some popping of popcorn down there.
We have beneficial, very useful, helpful to have evaluation structure outlined and reviewed. Helpful, very helpful. We know it's a lot
Okay.
on that process.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Provides
That's
great
what,
structure.
good.
I can see the impact it would have on recruiting donors and writing grants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know it may
Um,
seem weighty when you think about the fact that you might have 10 programs and then you have 10 page 47s, right? You have 10 of those, one to go with each program, but it's very helpful. Once you do it one time and you got it all set up, then all you have to do is kind of go back and use the framework. I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No,
I'm
it's okay.
sorry.
I wanted to ask Maurice because I don't think he minds speaking. Can you expand more about I have issues with them overlapping one another? Would
Yes,
you mind?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. When it came to on page 47, program B, when it says people, when it says for the what, for the second line where it says what exactly are we evaluating? And when I went to page 48, it says program strengths and weaknesses. You know, you put that for the what? But I was kind of confused with programs, strengths and weaknesses, and program goals. Aren't they kind of like similar? Because if you have goals, because if you have goals, you instantly know what's going to be your strengths, what's going to be your weaknesses, and your go-tos. That was the only issue I had because I felt program strength and weaknesses and program goals are twin brothers of one another.
Lisa, you want to take that
Yeah.
or you want me to?
You can go
You
ahead.
want me to?
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
they
help me
are
out, please.
different. Those are different. And our next topic is strategic planning, and we're going to break this down a little bit more. We can have a goal for our program, which is the what, right? What we want to do though, is we want to consider what are the strengths that are of that program, and then what are the weaknesses of that program? Because when we look at program goals, we're just identifying, did we achieve the goal?
Okay.
Yes or no? And
Okay.
if we did, what was the impact and what was the outcome?
Okay.
But when we look at strengths and weaknesses, what we're identifying is, what is it about this program that is strong? What is it about this program that is weak and we might need to change it or we might need to adjust? And so those are different in that regard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Questions? Anybody you're thinking to yourself, I just love program evaluation. Anybody? I just love it. Like, this is what I want to do. I like it. This is something I could do all day, every day. Where are my folks? No, nobody? Thank you, Jess. I appreciate you joining the. Anybody
But
else?
it's necessary.
Say it again, Lisa. Say it
And I
again.
don't love it, but it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you. Absolutely, absolutely. So what we want to do, we want to find the people in our organization where they just love this. This is especially a board member. That might be a good resource where this is their happy, if I could say happy, they're happy about looking at programs and evaluating and comparing and so on and so forth. There's something in the chat, Lisa, I think just popped up.
There are more comments.
Okay.
to Emily. My job is the Director of Business Analytics. The program evaluation part is very helpful for frameworking for her role. Helpful to isolate particular programs and gather information and not get overwhelmed with the totality of the agency's programs. True. It allows to be more focused and brainstorm better. My new role is to start developing new programs and strategic initiatives. This will be incredibly helpful to plan. So a lot more positive reactions for it.
Thank you so
I
much.
just wanted to say, one thing that was helpful for me was to kind of fill out my team of who was really into data management and right. And then I created a work group. So then that way it's like, this is the group, right? I know everybody else, may not want to participate, but I gave the option and then just created a small work group.
Makes sense. And what happens is over time, this group gets stronger and stronger, and they are so helpful when it comes to writing grants. Like they can be the grant team too. They may not see it that way at first, but they can, all that we do around evaluation and understanding the programs and all of that helps on the grant writing side. And it helps when we're trying to advertise and promote and to tell the community and or a donor why this program is so important and why it's needed. And you build historical knowledge with that work group, Amira. And that's helpful too, like long-term, because they can become ambassadors, they can help be spokespersons, et cetera, et cetera. So the more we enhance folks' capacity around what we do in evaluation and evaluating programs, I think it just makes for more helpful stakeholders. Let's see. I don't think I see, go ahead.
Emily, do you want to say it out loud or you want me to read it? Because you have a link in there
I
to
can say
reference.
it. It's
Sure.
not, I was just tagging somebody, but I was saying similar to what she said, my organization has assigned a data lead from each department that's really like into this type of stuff. And I meet with that group and kind of head it up to handle any of our like surveying, data gathering, analysis, evaluation of like all of our different programs. But that way we do have someone who's like really into doing this type of work that
Right.
gets to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So that kind of concludes our content around program design, management, and evaluation. Next week, our topic is strategic planning. And so I'll go ahead and tell you the pace and the cadence in terms of how we did this topic today it's going to be similar next week, but the topic is going to be strategic planning. So just so you can kind of get ready for next week in terms of how we facilitate that management function of a nonprofit. Want to give you a heads up on that. There's some other things that the team is going to share with you as we close. And we have a ask of some volunteers. I think either Rebecca or Lisa is going to ask you for that as we go forth. So give me a reaction. Right now, you're thinking what about program design, management, and evaluation? Give me a reaction. Right now, you're thinking what? Or the Institute as a whole. We're halfway there, y'all. We got 3 more sessions to go. Right now, you're thinking, right now, you're feeling what? I'm looking for some reactions here. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you,
Can
Jess.
do it.
Thank you. Say again.
Megan said can do it. Excited. As you're getting emojis, I'm getting words.
Oh, okay, good.
Helpful. All right.
Yes, good. It is very important to us that what we present and what we share, that you can actually use it. That is very important to us. And so thank you for your feedback. I'm going to turn it over to my teammates as we move into the ending of our session today.
So I just want to say, Sean, we'll get back to you on that group that we can address your question. And I'm assuming you're being serious, right? You're not joking, right?
Yeah, very serious. I'm
Oh,
putting the
okay.
committee together now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Just wanted to be sure. Um, right. So here we go into closing. As you can see, we have a post-session follow-up. You have a couple of homework stuff as you have done now for the past 2 sessions. One is to please go in and fill out evaluations and making sure you're giving us good feedback. Well, just feedback. I'm not going to say however you feel you need to give it to us. Remember to go to the LinkedIn group, and the link will be provided in your wraparound in terms of going on there. And as Dr. Palmer mentioned, one of the things that we're going to ask 1 or 2 people to do is to email us their strategic plan for our next session. Again, it's not to pick it apart. It's not to evaluate it. It's pretty much just because Dr. Palmer will spend some time going through each a part of building a strategic plan. So we just want a model of one to compare because like she mentioned, there's different ways we can do one and build one. So we want to give a couple of examples. So if you're willing, I really hope that we can get at least 1 or 2 volunteers to email us, or if it's on your website, tell us where to go get it, and we can do that too, if you prefer. So
And
keep that in
Lisa,
mind. Sure.
And Lisa, group, if you can you send it to us now? And that way we have it. I hate to put pressure on, but that way we can walk away with it and we won't forget. But if you have a strategic plan, and definitely if it's already on your website, if you send us the link, we can go right to it. But we just want to take a look at some of the strategic plans that you all have and utilize those as a point of reference potentially for next week. Thank you, Lisa.
Right. Anyone right now can just give us who we can just expect one from, maybe if you already know. Please put it in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that, and then we can follow up. So thank you. Oh, great. Thank you, Emily. She says she'll send hers. It's okay if it's outdated. It's fine. You can still, so I have, oh my gosh, correct me if I say your name wrong. Dosali?
Yeah, that's right. That's Sally.
Oh, yay. And Emily, great. Thank you so much. And you all, I'm assuming if you all know, you have all our emails, so you can just go on and send it there. Great. And then last but not least, just to remind you, for those of you who are not members, we have our remind you of our member benefits of joining the center. And then also, as you already know, as we've been doing, we'll be sending you some backup information about board governance and strategic planning in your wraparounds as we go forth. And with that, we'll be on for a few minutes afterwards, and stick around if you want to ask Dr. Palmer a question. Thank you.
Isn't it great? We gave what, 14? No, doing my math right. How many minutes? 19
20.
minutes. So,
Yeah.
but we're going to stay here. We're not going anywhere.